All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bring up our next presenter. Our next presenter, as I mentioned, is David Knight. I forgot to include this as part of his introduction this morning. He is an important part of Project JFK CSI Dallas, and I ignored or forgot to mention that. So, we've been working together with Project JFK and the JFK Historical Group and the JFK Assassination Conference to bring on conferences, and I've really appreciated working with David over the last couple years. It is now time to bring him up and do his presentation. Oh, I also want to say he's the hardest working person here today, no question at all. He's wearing so many hats. He's doing video, he's doing Zoom, he's doing audio, he's doing presenting. Any one of those things would be enough for any one person, so he must be Superman incarnate. So ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please help me welcome David Knight.
All right, let's see if I can keep my ass on time, huh? Okay, real quick. Anybody seen Bill O'Reilly where he couldn't read off the news prompter and he just said, "Fuck it, I'm doing it live"? Yes. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing because I did, I did the impossible last night. I was working late after about 2 hours of sleep, and I did not save my PowerPoint. I deleted the son of a bitch. Oh. So, at a later time, like in the next 2 months, I know I have a copy at home. It will be available. But this is the Jimmy Hoffa presentation that basically is going to it's broke up in about 6 parts. It's actually called JFK, it's called Hoffa Connecting the Dots. And if you guys were around in November of last year, you would have seen the first part, Connecting the Dots, where it talked about Frank Sheeran and the book I Heard You Paint Houses and the movie The Irishman. So tonight what I'm going to do is I want to go over the Hoffex memo. By raise of hands here, has anybody heard of the Hoffex memo? Okay, I take that so nobody's read the damn thing. Okay, well, think of the Hoffex memo like the Warren Commission. I didn't get a groan out of that. But this was done by the FBI. This was back in January 27th and 28th of 1975. It's called the Hoffex Conference, FBI headquarters. It's not a classified document. It was redacted for a long period of time, and I have an unredacted copy. You can get it too. It's not like I have something special that nobody else has. Just type in Hoffex memo in your Google search or whatever search engine you use, and you can download a copy and read all 57 pages. Now, I'm not going to read every single word for word to the audience tonight, but I have read it several times, so I'm going to hit the highlights, and then I'm going to give some new information on a possible location where they have done some ground sonar. If the video works, then we will be able to see some of the information, and again, it's on Fox News. And I know some people, they may not like Fox News. I watch all news stations. I don't care if it's CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, CBS. Why? Because that way you get a balanced version of what everybody has to say, because it's not like when we were kids where you actually had news reporters. You have talking heads reading off a teleprompter, and who knows who the hell actually writes that. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt, and you got to do your own research. So I tell everybody, do your own research. Hoffex. It's Hoffex. So think of Hoffa X without the A. Okay, so let's get into it here, guys. Let's see. This is known as the Hoffex memo. It's DE 79-359. I feel kind of like Ed Tatro without a PowerPoint because I love having that damn thing. It keeps me on track. This memo talks about Section 1. Cast of characters, family members: James R. Hoffa, age 62, James P. Hoffa, the son, age 33, Josephine Hoffa, age 60, that's the wife of Jimmy Hoffa, and Barbara Crancer, age 37, the daughter. I'm going to be talking about local suspects. First one up is going to be Charles L. Chucky O'Brien, age 41, raised by the Hoffa family and brought into the Teamsters by Jimmy Hoffa. Let's see, he's well known by Teamster officials as Detroit La Cosa Nostra and calls Tony Jekyllone Uncle Tony. Well, how about number 2, Anthony Tony Jack Jekyllone, age 57, Detroit La Cosa Nostra lieutenant and street boss who was reported to have set up meeting with James R. Hoffa July 30th, 1975 and never showed. Why is that date important? Because that's the last time anybody saw Jimmy Hoffa alive and kicking. Number 3, Vito Billy Jack Giacalone, age 53, brother of Tony, also Detroit La Cosa Nostra lieutenant. Who knows what La Cosa Nostra means? Well, it kind of means our thing. It's another version of like, mafia, mob. Let's see. Rafael Jimmy Q. Corsano, age 66, known Detroit La Cosa Nostra member, considered by sources as likely to be involved in actual murder of Jimmy Hoffa because of violent activities in the past. Paul Vital, age 68, known Detroit La Cosa Nostra member and associated with Corsano, whose sources believe is likely to be involved in Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance if Corsano was involved. Let's see. Roland McMaster. Now, here's another guy. He's got a long list of shit that he did. Age 61, former Secretary Treasurer of the Teamsters, Local 299, under Jimmy Hoffa and Frank Fitzsimmons. Now, you're going to hear a lot about, La Cosa Nostra, whether it's Detroit, New Jersey. These are people that the FBI investigated. I'll let you know the exact number of how many they did investigate. Let's talk about suspects outside of Michigan. Anthony Tony Provenzano, age 58, known New Jersey La Cosa Nostra member and Teamster Local 560 officer. Now, I want to let you know there's a conclusion here, or a connection between La Cosa Nostra and the Teamsters. Not everybody that's in the Teamsters is in La Cosa Nostra and vice versa, but there's a lot of connection between the ones I'm talking about. Stephen Andretta, age 42, trusted associate of Tony Pro, told Newark source Ralph Picardo, I want you to remember his name, I'll talk about him in a minute, that he did not participate in the Hoffa hit, but was left in Newark to provide alibi for Tony Pro. Thomas Andretta, age 38, brother of Stephen, trusted associate of Tony Pro, reported by Newark source to be involved in actual disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. Let's see here. We've got Salvatore Sal Brig. I need my Italian. Briglio, whatever the hell. Age 45, trusted associate of Tony Pro, reported by Newark source to be involved in actual disappearance of Hoffa. Gabe Briglio, age 36, brother of Sal, trusted associate of Tony Pro. Notice how Tony Pro seems to have a lot of guys that they talk to. Reported by a Newark source to be involved in actual disappearance of Jimmy. Okay, we got Francis Joseph Frank Sheeran. Now, if you saw my first presentation, I talked about him. Now, they did talk to Frank, but there's literally one paragraph. That's all they went into. And Frank Sheeran is the one that Charles Brandt interviewed, did deathbed confessions and several hours of tapes, wrote the book back in the 70s of I Heard You Paint Houses. Several new copies have been made of that book, and then it was turned into the movie The Irishman on Netflix. How many people have seen that on Netflix, The Irishman? Okay, good. A lot of people have seen it, so you'll understand some of the people I'm talking about. And if you haven't watched it, you can get it on, actually, Criterion Collection on Blu-ray. If you don't have Netflix, you can buy it. Or you can just get a copy of Netflix and pay the monthly fee. It's well worth the watch. 3.5 hours. Francis Ford Coppola. Martin Scorsese made it. So it says here, age 43, President Local 326. I'm talking about Sheeran. Wilmington, Delaware. Resides in Philadelphia and is known associate of Russell Buffalino. La Cosa Nostra chief, Eastern Pennsylvania. His vehicle seen at meeting of La Cosa Nostra figures in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, August 29, 1975, and also in Detroit, December 4, 1975. Let's see. During the appearance of New Jersey Teamsters, known to be in Detroit area at the time of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. Well, no shit, because he was the one that was in the car with him when he went to the house to be killed. And Frank knew it was going to happen because he's the one that actually did it. If you believe in the I Heard You Paint Houses and The Irishman. He's also considered to be a close personal friend of Jimmy Hoffa. Here's some other important figures. Louis Lintau, also known as the Pope. Former President, Teamster Local 614. Again, these guys are in La Cosa Nostra. They're in the Teamsters. Former enemy of Jimmy Hoffa. In the recent past, was considered to be Jimmy Hoffa's best friend. According to Lintau, at 3:30 p.m., Jimmy Hoffa called him to say Tony Giacalone did not show up for the meeting at Mascus Red Fox, which had been scheduled for 2 p.m. July 30th, 1975. Cynthia Green, age 37, Lintau's business associate and friend of Jimmy Hoffa and Josephine, his wife, for the past 3 years. Joseph Ciccalone, age 23, son of Tony Ciccalone, whose car O'Brien reported that he was driving on the afternoon of July 30th, 1975, not known to be in the Detroit La Cosa Nostra. Marvin Adele, age approximately 40, wealthy Detroit industrialist. Robert Holmes Jr., age approximately 42, Detroit Teamster business agent, personal friend of O'Brien. Frank Fitzsimmons, age 65, current international president of Teamster Union, reported enemy of Jimmy Hoffa. So they talked to a lot of, friends, associates, and also enemies. So I must say, at least they didn't just concentrate on one group of people. They talked to a lot of them. It was he who Jimmy Hoffa put in charge of the Teamsters International Union while Jimmy Hoffa went to prison. And Frank Fitzsimmons was just supposed to be a placeholder. That's all he was. Jimmy Hoffa was supposed to get out of prison, go right back into running the Teamsters. But we know the Mafia didn't like having somebody they couldn't control, and Jimmy was not somebody to be controlled. Frank, on the other hand, did their bidding. So when Hoffa got out of prison, it was not going to be easy to unseat Frank Fitzsimmons. Let's see here. Joseph Baines Sr., age approximately 50, President Local 614. Anthony Joseph Tony Zarelli, age 48, current underboss who reported runs Detroit La Cosa Nostra. Joseph Zarelli, age 78, father of Tony and boss of Detroit La Cosa Nostra. Giacomo Jack Tocco, age 56, Detroit La Cosa Nostra lieutenant. The investigation to date, this is part 2. James Riddle Hoffa. His middle name says it all. It's a riddle. This presentation will limit itself to Jimmy Hoffa's activities during the spring and summer of 1975, in which investigation has revealed certain events leading up to July 30th, 1975 meeting. Let's see here. December 1974 at Miami, Florida, when Anthony Ciccalone met James P. Hoffa, that's Hoffa's son. During this meeting, Ciccalone told Hoffa's son that Anthony Provenzano was saying some unpleasant things about Jimmy and pressed Hoffa's son to have his father get together with Provenzano and settle their differences. On May 15, 1975, Jimmy Hoffa was aware of the meeting per his son, and the contents of that meeting, again, centered around Jimmy meeting with Anthony Provenzano to settle differences and clear the air. Jimmy Hoffa advised both Ciccalones he did not wish to meet with Provenzano, calling Provenzano a bum. According to Jan Hoffa, the Ciccalones persisted in their attempts to arrange a meeting, stating there's got to be a meeting. The meeting terminated with Hoffa telling both Ciccalone he would not meet Provenzano anywhere. July 30th, 1975, Jimmy received a telephone call at his residence from Anthony Provenzano, had asked for Hoffa's assistance regarding some unknown matter. Hoffa told his wife he did not plan on helping Provenzano in any way. Investigation reveals that Louis Latano, mentioned him a while ago, of the ASL, and a neighbor of Jimmy Hoffa confirmed that Tony and Vito Ciccalone met with Jimmy Hoffa at his residence on July 26, 1975, 4 days before his disappearance. According to Latano, Jimmy Hoffa told him a meeting was set for Wednesday, July 30th, 1975, at the Damascus Red Fox restaurant. Nature of the participants at the meeting were unknown to Latano. On July 30th, 1975, Jimmy left his residence at Lake Orion at approximately 1:10 to 1:15 and proceeded to the offices of the ASL, where he departed at 1:30, and from there to the Damascus Red Fox restaurant. His whereabouts since that time are unknown. Conclusion. Based on the above investigation, it is felt that Anthony and Vito Ciccalone were acting in a capacity of mediators to settle unknown differences between Jimmy Hoffa and Anthony Provenzano. It is apparent that Jimmy Hoffa resisted this meeting for a lengthy period, and reasons as to his relenting to finally meet Provenzano are unclear. Problems with this. The major problems in relation to Jimmy Hoffa's activities are centered around the fact that all information regarding meetings between Jimmy Hoffa and Ciccalone are furnished by 3 parties only. These parties being Hoffa's son, Mrs. Hoffa, and Louis Latano. Further, it appears that Hoffa's son had been purposely excluded from any meetings and many dealings regarding his father and La Cosa Nostra connection. So he really wasn't tied into some of aspects that his father was doing. Now, when it came to the Teamsters, yes. La Cosa Nostra, no. Jimmy was not really in the La Cosa Nostra, but he was connected to them with the people that were in the Teamsters unions. Now, the ASL, what the hell does that stand for? It stands for Airport Service Lines Incorporated. This is a business engaged in the transportation of individuals between Detroit Metropolitan Airport and various hotels in the metropolitan area. Information resulting from the interview of Latano indicates that Latano had set himself up as a buffer between people wishing to see Jimmy Hoffa and himself. Latano revealed that on at least 2 occasions, Anthony Ciccalone went through him to attempt to set up meetings with Jimmy Hoffa. Latano has stated that he went to the Hoffa residence on July 26, 1975, again 4 days before, and was told by Mr. Hoffa that Hoffa, and Jimmy would refer to himself in the third person. It wasn't, I went out, I did this. It's Hoffa. That's the way he talked. Had just spoken to Ciccalone's, and the meeting is set for Wednesday at Damascus. Latano placed the time of the Hoffa call at 3:30 p.m. During the conversation with Jimmy Hoffa, Latano was asked by Hoffa if the Ciccalones had called, to which Latano replied in the negative. Jimmy Hoffa then advised Latano, the bastards are an hour and a half late to meet me. He did not like being late. If you were late by more than 10 minutes, it was a sign of disrespect, and he'd get up and leave. Jimmy Hoffa further advised Latano that he was departing the Damascus Red Fox en route to go back home to his residence. See, I told you I'm not reading every single page. Okay, the Damascus Red Fox restaurant. This restaurant, the location of the planned meeting between Jimmy Hoffa and Anthony Ciccalone and Anthony Provenzano, is located in a medium-sized shopping center in one of the most affluent areas of Oakland County, Michigan. The vast majority of investigations in and around the Damascus Red Fox was negative regarding any sightings of Jimmy Hoffa or any unusual activities. Then it goes on to say, however, this investigation did reveal 6 eyewitnesses to the presence of Jimmy Hoffa at the Damascus Red Fox on July 30th, and these witnesses, 5, spoke to Jimmy Hoffa. So again, I go back to look at the Warren Commission of the lies that are in that. So in one sentence, you're going to say that nobody saw him. In the next sentence, in the next paragraph, you're going to say, yeah, well, we had 6 eyewitnesses that saw him there. So what the hell? Which is it? All of the eyewitnesses stated that Jimmy Hoffa appeared to be waiting for someone, but none could provide any information as to the method of departure Jimmy Hoffa utilized from the Damascus Red Fox. So they saw him there. Some of them saw him arrive, but nobody saw how he left. Investigations at the Damascus Red Fox has failed to place any other known participants to the July 30th meeting in the vicinity. However, one witness does place Salvatore Bruglio in the MRF parking lot, which is being covered under a separate section of this presentation. Another conclusion. Based on the extensive investigation in the vicinity of the Damascus Red Fox, it is felt that Jimmy Hoffa was not physically abducted at the restaurant on July 30th, 1975. Further, it is believed that Jimmy Hoffa arrived at the Damascus Red Fox at approximately 2 p.m. and departed from the area at approximately 2:45 to 2:50. Well, again, if they're an hour and a half late and he got there at 2 o'clock, 2:50 is only 50 minutes. So that timeline doesn't fit. Charles Linton Joseph O'Brien. Investigations regarding O'Brien has included his activities prior to and after Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance, associates, relationship with Tony Ciccalone, and use of and access to Tony Ciccalone's 1975 Mercury. Let's see. 2 lengthy interviews with O'Brien was conducted on August 6 and 18, 1975. O'Brien said he called Tony Ciccalone on the evening of July 29, 1975, the night before, at Joey Ciccalone's apartment, and was told by Tony that he would be at the Southfield Athletic Club all day on July 30th because he had a meeting there, was getting a haircut, and he had made no mention of Jimmy Hoffa. So I think he was setting up an alibi. That's what I get from that. I do. I feel like Ed Tatro up here. Thursday, July 31st, 1975. This is the day after. O'Brien arrived at his office at around 9:30 a.m. In mid-morning, he received a message from Barbara Lipchick to call Louis Linto since Jimmy Hoffa did not come home last night. Linto told him the old man was missing and Hoffa's son had returned to his Troy residence from a vacation. At 2:30 p.m., he called Joey Ciccalone for a ride. Ciccalone picked him up about a half hour later, and they went to Ciccalone's apartment. Tony Ciccalone was there and said Linto had called him to see whatever Ciccalone, had seen Jimmy Hoffa and or had an appointment with him the prior day. Ciccolone told O'Brien that he informed Linto that he had not seen Jimmy Hoffa and did not have any appointment with him and did not know where his whereabouts were. On Friday, August 1st, 1975, at about 2:30 p.m., O'Brien said he met with Hoffa's son and accused by Hoffa's son of knowing more than what he was saying. O'Brien said Hoffa's son was acting like a prosecutor. As he was leaving, he was asked to arrange a meeting between Hoffa's son and Tony Ciccolone for the next day. O'Brien called Ciccolone in the morning saying Hoffa's son wanted to meet, and Ciccolone told him that Linto had called again, and he denied a July 30th, 1975 meeting, and he said he didn't know anything. O'Brien called Hoffa's son saying Ciccolone would meet. O'Brien said he did not advise Ciccolone to meet or not meet Hoffa's son, nor did he say to Ciccolone that Hoffa's son was trying to set him up. And we don't really know whether he was trying to set him up. The Damascus Red Fox on July 30th, 1975, an eyewitness has placed him there with Jimmy Hoffa in a Mercury similar to Joey Ciccolone's. Here's some problems. O'Brien's 2 FBI interviews are replete with inconsistencies and untruths, which collateral interviews have proved. O'Brien is described by even his closest friends as a pathological liar who borders on being totally incompetent. Dumbass. Anthony Tony Ciccolone. Ciccolone's name became prominent in the investigation the first day of the investigation after Louis Lintow and ASL employees identified him as the last one, or at least one of the people Jimmy Hoffa mentioned he was to meet with at the Damascus Red Fox on July 30th. Ciccolone's friendship with Jimmy Hoffa had been well documented over the years and within the La Cosa Nostra. Ciccolone is considered the Teamsters' contact man. Chucky O'Brien was equally close to Jimmy Hoffa and Tony Ciccolone. It is believed that through these associations, Ciccolone knew what was happening with Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters. However, after Jimmy Hoffa was released from prison, he served no useful purpose to Ciccolone any longer, and there is not a great deal of known contact between those two men. How about this conclusion? It is believed that because of the extensive investigation into the activities of Ciccolone on July 30th and his apparent attempt to establish an alibi, that he definitely he definitely set up the meeting that day, however, never planned to attend. When O'Brien met with Ciccolone, he perhaps had gotten cold feet and was trying to get out of his part in the crime. So they knew what was going to happen to him. They were going to abduct him, kill him, send him off. If the assumption is correct that O'Brien was trying not to become involved in the disappearance, this would explain why Jimmy Hoffa had to wait at the Damascus Red Fox for such a long time. Here's some problems to that. The problems concerning this investigation is the same as every other portion of the investigation in which O'Brien's involved. Namely, O'Brien is a habitual liar. Ciccolone refuses to be interviewed and took the Fifth Amendment before the Detroit federal grand jury. Anthony Tony Provenzano. Tony Pro. Tony Pro's name is disclosed in this case almost immediately following the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, when it was suspected that it was he who Jimmy Hoffa was to meet at the Damascus Red Fox on July 30th. He said he was in New Jersey on that day and knew nothing about the whereabouts of Jimmy. Tony Pro was subpoenaed before the district, district hearing September 5th, 1975, but he refused to testify. However, on November 5th, 1975, Ralph Picardo. It says in parentheses, protect. Now, I don't know, was he a government witness? I have not been able to find that out, but it says protect next to his name. And the only thing I can think of is protected status, protected witness. Began to furnish information to the Bureau agents regarding criminal activities, maybe he was rat, of Tony Pro, Salvatore, and Gabriele Bergoglio, and Thomas and Stephen Andretta, the two brothers, and New Jersey Teamsters associated with Local 560. Now, Jimmy's Teamster union was 299, but this is the 560 local. Picardo contended that he had personal knowledge of 2 other aborted attempts by Tony Pro on Jimmy Hoffa's life. Picardo alleges that in August 1975, a few days after the disappearance of Hoffa, he was visited at the New Jersey State Penitentiary. He was serving a sentence for second-degree murder by Stephen and Thomas Andretta and Martin Schindler. When Thomas Andretta and Schindler were out of the room, Andretta asked Picardo if federal agents had been there to see him, and then made admissions and references that Provenzano's group was involved in the Jimmy Hoffa appearance, and stated that the body was brought back to New Jersey by Gateway Transportation Company. Stephen Andretta provided an alibi for Tony Pro. Yeah, because they lie for each other. During an interview of Tony Pro on August 4th, 1975, Provenzano claimed he was with Stephen Andretta the day of Hoffa's disappearance. Another conclusion, Tony Pro served time in Lewisburg prison with Jimmy Hoffa when he went to prison, during which time it was reported that while starting out as very good friends, they had a falling out. Tony Pro actually said he would kidnap his grandkids and kill them right in front of Hoffa. This did not go over well. Hoffa wound up beating the shit out of him in prison for this. This argument was reportedly caused by Hoffa's refusal to assist Tony Pro in receiving some type of Teamster pension money, which he felt Hoffa could get for him. It is believed that if Picardo's information is correct, Tony Pro was responsible for Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance and used his continued attempts to have a meeting with Hoffa as an excuse for the setup on July 30th, 1975. Details of the abduction, if any, are unknown. However, Tommy Andretta and the Bruglios figure to have had a part in it. Now, I said that I believe that it's Frank Sheeran that actually pulled the trigger. Well, he wasn't the one that came up with the idea. He didn't want to kill his friend. He was ordered to. Either you kill Hoffa or we kill you, and we still kill Hoffa. So, do I think Tony Pro was the one that actually ordered it? You're damn right I do. Well, here's some problems with that too. Because God damn love the FBI. They got conclusions, they got a list, they got conclusions, and they got problems. They got a lot of problems. Also, if the Detroit, if the Detroit ICN was used to assist in the disappearance, it is unknown why the body would be transported back to New Jersey when Detroit organized crime people have proven in the past they are very capable of taking care of such things. I'll go over some physical evidence here real quick. Investigation to date has developed the following physical evidence. On July 31st, 1975, a 1974 Pontiac Granville two-door green with a green vinyl top was obtained and determined to be the vehicle owned and driven by Jimmy Hoffa on that day. 24 latent fingerprints were obtained from this vehicle by the Michigan State Police Crime Laboratory, who conducted this examination. Photographs of these prints were obtained and sent to the FBI laboratory. 4 of these latents were fingerprints, and 2 of them were identified as those of Jimmy Hoffa. The remainder of the lists were unacceptable for comparison in their present form. Numerous comparisons with possible suspects in the case to date leave the remaining 2 latent fingerprints unidentified. What I want to know is, does the FBI still have those fingerprints? On August, or was it, like the piece of concrete that took out of DOA Plaza, oh, well, there's just no room for a little piece of concrete, so just chuck it in the damn trash. On August 9, 1975, I'm not bitter, by the way, a 1975 maroon Mercury 4-door was seized based on a search warrant issued at Detroit. This vehicle, which is owned by Joseph Ciccalone, Tony Ciccalone's son, was seized because Chucky O'Brien had advised it was the vehicle he had driven on the afternoon of July 30th, 1975. This vehicle was searched thoroughly on August 9th. They need a couple weeks, I guess. By FBI laboratory personnel, 26 latent fingerprints and 2 palm prints of value were taken from the vehicle. A Remington Wingmaster 12-gauge pump shotgun was located in a black case in the trunk. In the trunk was a box of 12-gauge double zero buckshot shells, double-aught buck, as well as numerous 38 and 22 caliber bullets, which were located in the glove compartment. Under the driver's seat was a black leather pistol holder. No gun. Could it have been the gun that Sheeran used? Very possible. But, of course, we don't have a gun recovered because, like Jimmy's body, Sheeran said he shot Hoffa in the foyer of the house that he went into, laid the gun on his chest, and walked out. Let's see, August 13th and August 15th, 1975, German Shepherd scent dogs. All 3 dogs have excellent reputations in the field of matching body scents. All 3 dogs indicated a strong indication of Jimmy Hoffa's scent in the rear seat of the above vehicle, the one Chucky O'Brien was driving, owned by Ciccalone. 1 dog indicated a scent in the trunk. Now, the scent in the trunk could have been the smell going from the back seat to the trunk. So it doesn't say whether Hoffa was put into the trunk. I don't think he was. I think when he was driven to the house, he was alive and well. Him and Sheeran walked into the house, realized it was a setup. Tony Pro wasn't there, went to leave. Sheeran shot him, just like you see in the movie The Irishman. Everything fits in that. An FBI laboratory report dated September 19, 1975 reported that a single 3-inch brown head hair was found in the rear seat backrest of the above vehicle. This hair has characteristics similar to known Jimmy Hoffa hairs, which were previously submitted. Now, what the hell does that mean? Obviously, they didn't have DNA back then, so they couldn't go and pull the root and go, yep, that belongs to Jimmy. It was a brown hair. He had brown hair. Okay, so it's consistent. What kind of shit is that? A positive reaction for the presence of blood. And remember, they don't have DNA. So they could tell if it was blood or if it was ketchup, I guess. Was found on the chemical located on the surface of the hair. I don't even know what the hell that means, but it's in here. Read this shit. However, not enough of this substance was available for additional tests. So we know it's blood, but there's not enough, so we're not going to test it. Let's see. Page showing Jimmy Hoffa's appointments. Now, this is interesting. The following notation appears in the middle of 11 other notations. TG 230, Wednesday, WED, 14 Mile Tell, Fox Rest, Maple Road. The address 14 Maple Tell is incorrect. The correct address is 15 Mile, or Maple Road, as it is sometimes called, the Telegraph Road. Indicating he was not accustomed to going to the Damascus Red Fox on a regular basis, the words Maple Road, which is the correct street. Interestingly, though, he was last seen on the north side of the restaurant, which would be the Maple Road side of the restaurant, and also his car was parked on that side, indicating that the Maple Road could have been an additional message telling him where he was to wait in the relationship to the restaurant. So we know for a fact it's in his date book. They actually date book, but think of a Post-it note like what we use today. This was on his lamp on his desk. So obviously he was writing it down, put it there, and it was important that that's a meeting he had to go to. How about a lineup of eyewitnesses? This is number H here on the report, page 43. On December 4th, 1975, based on information provided by Newark source, Thomas Andretta, Salvatore Briglio, and Gabriel Briglio, I know I'm pronouncing their names wrong. I apologize to the dead guys. Okay. Were brought before the Detroit grand jury and asked if they would voluntarily appear before a lineup concerning the disappearance of Hoffa. Each of them answered, hell no. The lineup was held as planned on December 6, 1975, after U.S. District Judge James P. Churchill ordered them to appear. They weren't going to do it without that. Holbert Hall Odell, again it says in parentheses, protect. Was he another protected rat witness? Was the chief witness after he had previously provided information that he actually saw Jimmy Hoffa in the right rear seat of a maroon Lincoln or Mercury, along with 3 other individuals, one who he identified as Chucky O'Brien, in the vicinity of the Damascus Red Fox at approximately 2 p.m., July 30th, 1975. Again, 2 p.m. He arrived at 2 p.m. He waited an hour and a half because the bastards kept him waiting. But Chucky O'Brien's going to be with the car to pick up Hoffa at 2 o'clock. Maybe he got there before Hoffa. I don't know. But polygraphic examination said to be truthful. Another witness, Marjorie Jane Bissasalian, again, protect in parentheses, who on August 15, 1975 was interviewed and had stated she saw an unknown white male in a brown or maroon flashy car at approximately 2 p.m. in the MRF parking lot at the rear of the restaurant. Okay, was she talking about Hoffa or somebody else? Let's find out. She had seen a photograph of Salvatore Briglio in the newspaper and believed that he was the individual she had seen on July 30th, 1975. At the lineup, Bissalian picked out Salvatore Briglio as the person she saw sitting in the parked vehicle at the rear of the Damascus Red Fox on July 30th, 1975. She did not pick out a picture of Hoffa. Conclusions and problems this time. It is felt that no conclusive evidence can be drawn at this time from the information provided by the eyewitnesses. Okay, Roland B. McMaster. Remember I said think about that guy? Here's some shit he did. McMaster served as an officer in the Detroit Teamsters Local 299 from 1955 to 1967, and since 1970 as a general organizer for the Teamsters in Chicago and Detroit. Since that time, almost every act of violence has somehow been traced to a present or former associate of McMaster. Because of this, and because it is known that McMaster has always wanted to exercise control over Local 299, remember, that's Hoffa's local, he almost immediately became a prime suspect. An Indianapolis source early in the investigation advised that an individual by the name of Larry Yun, here's a new name for you, from Detroit had offered this source $50,000 to kill James Riddle Hoffa. Source also indicated later in the same interview that he felt that Yun and a friend of his by the name of Don Wells, not the one from Gilligan's Island, were probably responsible for Jimmy Hoffa's death. The investigation concerning the possibility that Jimmy Hoffa's body was shipped from the Detroit area by Gateway Transportation Company determined that one of the Detroit terminal managers, Stanton Barr, is a close personal friend and ex-brother-in-law of McMaster's. Another conclusion. Obviously, numerous pieces of unrelated information tend to imply that McMaster may be involved in the Jimmy Hoffa appearance. Well, here's their problems. There's very little, if any, corroborating testimony to the numerous allegations made against McMaster's. It's like these guys are, oh yeah, what's that word? Untouchable. Motives and disappearance. The motive mentioned most recently by both confidential sources and Teamsters officials is that James Riddle Hoffa was killed because of his attempts to re-enter Teamster union politics. When he went to prison, he got the pardon from Nixon. Part of that deal was he couldn't go back into the union in a capacity as a leader. Various sources have indicated that James Riddle Hoffa, in an attempt to have his union restrictions lifted, was preparing to testify against illegal Teamsters activities, which included kickbacks and other violations of federal labor law. Was Hoffa getting ready to rat, or was he just calling them out, going, I know the shit that you guys have done, and if you don't let me back in, I will go and I will tell my story. It is very possible that the motive for this disappearance and presumed, would be a personal vendetta, namely, again, from Tony Pro. It should be remembered, however, that no evidence has been developed to date which would prove that James Riddle Hoffa is either dead or alive. Now, at the time, obviously, it wasn't considered that he was dead. They pronounced him dead after this because, his body never reappeared and he never appeared live in person again. With the passage of time, however, it becomes increasingly less likely that Hoffa's alive. Okay, I'm on the last couple pages here. Detroit Organized Crime Strike Force and Federal Grand Jury Investigation. Detroit Federal Grand Jury between September 2nd, 1975 and December 11th, 1975, a total of 95. There's that number I told you I'd give you in a minute. 95 individuals, some more than once, appeared before the federal grand jury in Detroit. Joseph Ciccolone's vehicle. On August 8, 1975, a search warrant was issued for a 1975 Maroon Mercury. We heard about that car description a while ago, which was owned by Joseph Ciccolone, son of Detroit La Cosa Nostra member Tony Ciccolone, which was driven by Charles O'Brien the day of Jimmy Hoffa's appearance. New Jersey Teamsters. On December 4th, 1975, Thomas Andretta and Salvatore and Gabriel Bergolo appeared before the Detroit courts and refused to enter into a lineup. Problems encountered to date. News media leaks. Oh, wow, we had news media leaks in 1975. Hell, we got them today. WikiLeaks. It should be noted that this case has attracted extensive national news coverage from its inception until the present time. It was nothing to go on to news and go, hey, Hoffa's under Giant Stadium. He's, in a Cracker Jack box, somebody's mailbox. He was, that was like a game almost. Where's Waldo? Where's Hoffa? The pressure to obtain information, especially from Detroit by wire service reporters, has been extensive. Another problem which has occurred is that in many instances, information is first given to James P. Hoffa from various friends or citizens attempting to collect reward money. This information provided to James P. Hoffa, the son of Jimmy. They're both named Jimmy, but R and P is under his control. And while we believe he normally gives the information to the FBI first, we can never be for sure. So I'm kind of curious here. Did Jimmy Hoffa Jr., James P. Hoffa, did he tell the FBI everything he found out? Probably not. Information provided. It should be known that the majority of the information which has led to suspects in Detroit and other divisions has been provided by a very limited number of individuals without corroboration. The Detroit Federal Grand Jury has failed to provide any additional investigative direction based on their findings. Jurisdiction in this case is basically unclear, and the strike force Detroit has indicated that regardless of where the body's found, the prosecution will probably be by local authorities. If they found him today and could figure out who the hell killed him, murder does not carry a statute of limitations. They could still prosecute. They could still prosecute somebody after they've died. Informant information, they'd have a hard time doing that, but they could do it. Informant information, the lack of concrete informant information, especially from top ethically-owned informants, leads one to believe that there is a limited number of people who know the facts surrounding the disappearance of James Riddle Hoffa. This would tend to indicate a hit which was authorized at the highest levels of organized crime structure, or to a lesser degree that the murder occurred completely outside of the La Cosa Nostra structure. Bullshit. Political overtones. In view of the fact that the Teamsters Union is a large and powerful group of people, any investigation into their activity generally meets with political pressure at almost all levels of government. The last paragraph of this report says, information received from concerned citizens. The Detroit Division has received numerous telephone and letter tips from well-meaning but usually unreliable sources. It happens. In view of the extensive investigation being conducted, many of these tips must be investigated, resulting in numerous man-hours being spent on unproductive investigations. That wraps up the Hoffex memo, and now I'm just going to give you the quick rundown. Take me a couple minutes, and this is where we are going with could Hoffa's body finally be found? It would be great. Let me see here. And again, you can type this in on Google. Fox News has a few things. Fox Nation, by the way, has I believe it's a 5-part miniseries called Riddle, all about Jimmy Hoffa. It's a very informative documentary series. I suggest if you want to find more information, watch it. Some of the best information they've got in the last probably 20 years. Let's see, the case for Jimmy Hoffa buried under a New Jersey bridge. DJ, can you show the... Okay, and then just follow along as I'm reading here, and we'll get through this. It says the FBI is expected to soon commence a dig for the remains of legendary labor leader Jimmy Hoffa, where it is claimed he was buried in a barrel after being killed in Detroit July 30th, 1975. The chances that the remains of Hoffa, the one-time president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, are under the industrial dirt of Jersey City, New Jersey, are actually very good, observers say. And I just want to point this out. Frank Sheeran says he killed Hoffa. He did not say that he went in and cleaned up or disposed of the body. He shot him, he laid the gun on his chest, he walked out the damn door. Where he would know if anybody told him or if he ever did find out, he never said. Didn't say where Jimmy Hoffa was at. He never admitted to killing Hoffa until on his deathbed. Anthony Tony Provenzano was a much-feared capo in the Genovese crime family and top Teamsters officials who headed North New Jersey Teamsters Local 560 located in nearby Union City. He died in prison at the age of 71 in 1988, convicted in a previous union-related murder. These guys didn't give a shit. They killed whoever they wanted to kill, even friends, associates. That's how it was done. Let's see. There's very few guys that the legend carried on after they were gone, and Tony Pro was famous for that, said Giovanni Rocco. Let's see here. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but yeah, Rocco said, I've seen guys killed for much less. Hoffa was also attempting to regain the presidency of the Teamsters, and it would make trouble for the mob if he took over. This mentions Ralph Picardo again. Same people that I mentioned in the Hoffex memo. They're going right back and they're going to the information and they're looking at it again with fresh eyes. That's what we're doing in the JFK assassinations, what we need to do in all the assassinations. Medgar Evers, MLK, Malcolm X. Let's see. It says here that the FBI was told by informant Ralph Picardo, a member of Tony Pro's New Jersey mob crew, and this is some cold shit I'll get to in a minute, that Hoffa's body was stuffed inside a 55-gallon drum, put on a trailer truck, and driven to New Jersey, where it was probably dumped in a mob-connected toxic waste dump under the Pulaski Skyway in New Jersey. That dump, PJP landfill, was known as Moscato's Dump. Not the wine, but Moscato's Dump, a reference to co-owner Phil Brother Moscato, a top-level mobster in the Genovese family. It was his son, Phil Moscato Jr., who told Fox Nation that Hoffa's body was brought back to the state from Detroit. Frank Capello, the son of the dump's other owner, businessman Paul Capello Sr., claimed that it was his father who actually buried Hoffa in a steel barrel 12 feet down under the Skyway, in a spot just across the property line from Moscato's dump. The land directly under the elevated highway was never searched by authorities because it was not part of the dump. So when they went there and they looked for Hoffa's body in a New Jersey landfill, but they looked in the landfill where the trucks were at, where it was used all the time. Let's see, if you go back, you can actually, DJ, scroll up a little bit. Oh, okay, I'll get to it in a minute. He says, my father said, I want this man to go home to his family. He needs to go back home. He was a great, good man, and my father respected him, Capello said. Capello came forward after his brother Paul Jr. watched a segment I was anchoring on the Fox News channel about our Fox Nation Riddle series with author Dan Modea, who was working with me as part of our Fox Nation investigation. After Capello told his story to Modea and to me, we zeroed in on the site, and Fox Nation conducted a ground-penetrating radar survey of the small plot of land under the Skyway where Capello claimed that his father buried Hoffa. That examination revealed, as Capello had promised, what appears to be multiple drums buried on top of each other, exactly as he described burying Hoffa in a barrel. In October 2021, the FBI conducted its own survey on the site and said the next step would be waiting for its analysis. God damn it, that was 2 years ago and we still don't know. Why the hell does the FBI have to drag their damn feet? If it was me, if it's not a crime scene, there's no yellow tape around it, go get a track alert. I'll come out there and dig the damn place up myself. I'm sure I can do it. The Detroit office of the FBI, which has jurisdiction over Hoffa's investigation, issued a statement last fall to Fox News that stated, in part, the FBI obtained a search warrant to conduct a site survey underneath the Pulaski Skyway. On October 25th and 26th, FBI from the New York and Detroit field offices completed the survey, and that data is currently being processed and analyzed. This article came out last year in 2022. So far, there's not been an update that I have seen, and I've been following the story. We're into 4 months into 2023. They did everything in 2021. 2 years later, we still don't have the analyze. I mean, you took ground sonar. If you see that there's barrels stacked there, how fucking hard can it be to dig? Let's see here. FBI Special Agent Joe Brennan, who was an organized crime supervisor in New Jersey's FBI office in the 1970s, said the Bureau was told Hoffa did end up in New Jersey on Tony Pro's orders. This is the cold shit. He wanted to see the body, Brennan said in a 2013 interview. We were told that Hoffa was grabbed, killed there in Detroit, and brought back to New Jersey for Provenzano to personally verify that he was dead. Rocco said Tony Pro very well could have done just that, ordering Hoffa to be buried on his turf as a message and a way to claim control over him even after his death. The way they kill a guy as a message, Rocco said, and there'd be no better way to claim victory over Jimmy Hoffa than by driving by him every single day. A trophy. Bring him here, Rocco said of that thinking. There he is. That's where he still sits. And as you ride by, you give the finger. And in that life, it sounds crazy, but that's what they do. In an interview in the early 1980s by a British documentary, the mob informant and former member of Tony Pro's crew, Ralph Picardo, described him as a ruthless, self-educated, cunning schizophrenic. He always treated ambitious people with the ambition which direction to his benefit. And as not as people that were trying to take over his power, his domain, he had them killed. Tony Pro and several of his reputed members of his New Jersey-based crew were all listed as suspects in the Hoffa murder by the FBI. What I just read to you. Tony Pro pleaded the fifth when called before the grand jury investigating Hoffa's disappearance in the fall of 1975. It turned out another possible motive for Tony Pro wanting Hoffa came from Philadelphia mob hitman Charlie Allen in U.S. Senate testimony in 1982. He told the Senate Subcommittee on Investigations that Hoffa planned to rub out Tony Pro. Are you shitting me? Rub out Tony Pro and several others, including his successor, Teamsters President Frank Fitzsimmons, before they could get him. Senator Sam Nunn of Georgia asked Allen, Hoffa was going to kill both Tony Pro and fake Fitzsimmons? Allen replied, there was going to be three other fellows too. He was getting rid of who he wanted to get rid of after he got out. Provenzano got tipped off, and the way it's described is that somebody in the small circle of co-conspirators tipped off the other side what was going to happen. And that's what created what later turned into the death of Jimmy Hoffa, says retired Philadelphia lawyer Glenn Zeitz. Tony Provenzano was set up because he got information that he was supposed to be killed. Zeitz represented a who's who of mobsters, including the late Philadelphia mob boss Ralph Natal when he testified in front of a Senate Committee on Organized Crime. He told Fox Nation that Allen's testimony shows Tony Pro was in a position to strike Hoffa before Hoffa could kill him. He was in a position where he was working with others to dispose of Jimmy Hoffa, and that's the best way I could put it, he said. There were two teams. You could call it Team A and Team B, but it's not like football. It's like you just don't win the game. One team is going to get eradicated. Multiple teams? Killing somebody. Well, what the hell does that sound like? JFK assassination. Hell, it could be MLK assassination. Think they got a playbook with this shit? You just go down to the local bookstore for mobsters, how to make a hit? If they do, I bet you there's a goddamn bestseller in that group. Zeitz points out that Allen, who supported Hoffa, pled guilty to a conspiracy to kill Frank Fitzsimmons and others, including Tony Pro. His plea agreement included describing the conspiracy by one side of the Philadelphia mob family to kill another faction of the family. And that plan included taking out several other mobsters, too. Now, in Chicago, Detroit, hell, back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, does anybody remember the mob wars where they were blowing everybody up, shooting and killing? Shit made it real. Zeitz points out that Allen, who supported Hoffa, pled guilty to a conspiracy to kill Frank Fitzsimmons and others. Oh, shit, I just read that. Okay. Charlie Allen was a very significant figure, but he was also very loyal to Jimmy Hoffa, said Zeitz. He had a close relationship with Jimmy Hoffa. He was knifed multiple times protecting Hoffa in prison. And that's a close relationship, all right. I don't know if I'd take a knife for somebody, maybe my kids. Let's see. It was known that he really thought the world of Hoffa. He thought Hoffa was a man's man. After Hoffa disappeared, Allen said he was told that Jimmy was killed, ground up in little pieces, shipped to Florida, and dumped in a swamp. Again, another theory. Another indication that Tony Pro handled Hoffa's murder is the revelation from Hoffa's once close aide and confidant, Chucky O'Brien. O'Brien said that the order to kill Hoffa came from New York, meaning either the Mafia Commission or the Genovese crime family okayed the hit and that Tony Pro had a lot to do with it. O'Brien's admission about Tony Pro's involvement were revealed in the recent book Hoffa's Shadow, A Stepfather, A Disappearance, and My Search for the Truth by O'Brien's stepson, Jack Goldsmith. I have not read this book, but I have already ordered it, and hopefully I will get it soon. Goldsmith is a respected Harvard University law professor and former assistant U.S. Attorney General in the George W. Bush administration. I don't know if we should hold that against him. The information backs up the theory that the assignment was given to Tony Pro, who then could presumably order underlings to bring the body to his turf in northern New Jersey to remain forever. That is some cold shit. You go out and you kill a guy, and then you say, hey, guess what? Bring him here. I want to know where he's at. I want to be his keeper. The U.S. Department of Environmental Protection and local officials cleaned up the dump in the 1980s, but the engineer who New Jersey put in charge of the operation, Mario Vertibello, told Fox Nation he thought the site pinpointed by Frank Capello may not have been examined. So even though examined the dump, the site that he's pointing to may not have been actually checked at that time when they searched. We heard all sorts of rumors and bullshit about Jimmy Hoffa. Might be buried here, might be buried there, said Vertibello. He is now a board member of the plan to transform part of the former dump into a public park. That'll be a cherry thought. You go to a former park and, hey, guess what? Go over there and play by the swing set, little Johnny. Jimmy's underneath there. That will serve as a memorial to the residents of Jersey City who died from COVID-19. That's a good idea. I appreciate the park, but I wish they would dig first to see if Hoffa's there. They stopped us when we started digging, he recalled, saying it's quite possible that the barrels that Capello said were buried at that spot by his father were still there. It doesn't take much to bury a drum and leave it there. It also doesn't take much to dig the damn thing up. It has been several months since the FBI visited the site. Oh shit, examined by Fox Nation. But the truth will only come when the Bureau puts up the evidence tape, brings out a digger, and starts removing the dirt and soil that has been covering what we found under Pulaski Skyway. They may discover what Frank Capello claimed is there, or just scraps of rusted barrels that were never removed. Some longtime Hoffa experts and others doubt that the mob would have driven Hoffa 600 miles to New Jersey and would have easily disposed of his remains in the Motor City. But those who are convinced Hoffa is buried in New Jersey insist that doubters are discounting the fearsome Tony Pro. It is now up to the FBI to find out. So I'm going to continue following this. This is only part 2. Hey, he's got it right, though. It's been a lot of years since 1975 when he disappeared. That was a year after I was born, and they owe it to the Hoffa family to find out, if he's actually buried there, and if not, look for the next spot that he could be buried at. Don't give up. You know, the point is, you know, it's still an unsolved case. And I thought with the FBI, they're, you know, top law enforcement in the country, isn't their job to keep investigating until they find an answer, especially for the family? So with that, that's all I got, guys. Go ahead, Larry.
When you said about Tony Pro refusing to answer, did he refuse or did he take the fifth?
It states in the report refused, but I've heard both. I've heard he refused, and I heard that he took the Fifth Amendment. A lot of it, now in the Hoffex memo that I read, and granted, I had a nice bound copy highlighted. I had the PowerPoint slides, so I'm sitting there at the table in between everybody else's presentations, trying to highlight as fast as I could, so I didn't have to sit there and stumble around like an idiot. But I don't remember. I believe it does not say that he took the Fifth Amendment. He just refused. But the two brothers, a judge ordered them to you know, to testify or to go to a lineup. So.
Another thing, at 18, I arrived in Detroit probably 3 weeks after it happened, and I lived there for 10 years after. And it seemed like every other year they were digging up somebody's farm, you know, trying to find remains, or digging up somebody's floor, you know, in somewhere in the metro Detroit area.
Yeah, I mean it's.
So there was always a constant search.
Yeah, it was always in the news. I remember seeing old clips, you know, and Dad would talk about it, and like I say, there's a personal connection there between my dad and Jimmy.
And
But
the last thing that I want to ask you,
yeah.
The movie, the Beatles.
Oh, Hoffa with Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito.
Is DeVito's character a composite or?
DeVito's character is a composite. The thing about Bobby Chiaro, there was no person named Bobby Chiaro, but instead of Danny DeVito that directed that movie, he decided that instead of having a narration voice, he needed Hoffa to be able to talk to somebody to make the movie come off. So, yeah,
It's a poetic license.
yeah, it's Hollywood taking, you know, licensing to tell the story. Dramatic license. Thank you, David.
Dave, do you have a detailed understanding of Hoffa's involvement in John Kennedy's assassination?
I see some connections, and again, I am connecting the dots. That's why it's called Connecting the Dots presentations. I will explore more of that in the next couple presentations I do. But there's connections like David Ferry and Frank Sheeran. That's a connection, because Ferry's connected to the JFK assassination, so, or at least Lee Harvey Oswald, depending on what way you weigh that. So there's definitely connections. And the other thing that came out in Dallas was in the Lafitte date book. Hoffa's name is written in that book. When we did the coup in Dallas panel and that came out, that blew me away. Why the hell would Hoffa's name be in Lafitte's date book? So again, I'm kind of doing the reporting and going back to look at it and try to take all my information. And I have stacks of Jimmy Hoffa information, not just a one-trick pony on JFK. And trying to, you know, put it together. I think it's just like Medgar Evers' day. I mean, Jimmy's not up here, but Medgar Evers is, and, you know, I think that it's something that we need to investigate. And if there are connections to the JFK assassination, or to, obviously there's the connection with, you know, the Get Hoffa squad and RFK and, you know, JFK. So I think there's connections there, and we just got to figure out by connecting the dots what goes where and how does it all line up.
Yeah. McCone's, Hoffa's name is mentioned in McCone.
Yes. Yeah, and I talked about McCone in Dallas. Yeah, I brought him up. So.
Well, folks, we're going to have to knock it off. Let's give Dave one more.